Getting back to the home mining, I mean, even before getting there, you brought up ESG and environment a few minutes ago. I'm now convinced that like solar and wind can be effective sources of energy for mining, whereas previously I didn't have the strongest answer, and I wasn't really hearing from anyone else either, because of the economics. Because if you have energy sources, even if they're cheap, or even like literally, if they cost zero, if it costs you nothing, it's just surplus energy. If it's only available, say like 30 or 40% of the time, you're competing against 24/7 global miners. So if you can only mine 40% of the time and competing against people who buy the same equipment as you, you're going to get competed out. I mean, in today's mining environment, the profit margins are so large that you could plug it in the wall here in San Francisco and still probably profit. But at equilibrium, the total profits converge towards zero. Yeah. So how does it work out economically? So the big unlock for me, and I think a few others recently this past fall, is if you think about large 24/7 industrial miners, they buy the latest and greatest equipment, and then after some period of time, let's say 3, 4, 5 years, that equipment is no longer economic for them. So what do they do with it? Well, if there's no other market or no other type of miner, they would throw it away. Or they basically have e-waste. They might even have to pay money to get rid of the equipment. So at the very least, it would be $0. It might even be -$. They might even pay someone to take the equipment. Let's say you have a large solar farm or wind farm. If your surplus energy costs are zero, and you can get old mining equipment, even if it's not the latest and greatest and most efficient, and get it for $0 or even $, you're going to be able to compete then with 24/7 miners, because you have no investment. Your only costs are the relatively minor operational costs. The two big cost factors would be zero, energy and the capex for the equipment. So clearly a market will develop for that equipment. It won't be $0. People will pay for it, and the people though there'll be intermittent energy sources such as solar and wind farms, and then you can take that down to the scale of an individual home, where you might have solar panels at home. And, I have solar panels in my home here in California, and currently PG&E, I think, is forced by the government to pay me money to take my excess energy, but
put it into the grid.
But they don't even need it for the grid. When I'm producing a surplus, like, at noon or 1 p.m.
Everyone is.
Yeah. And the demand, that doesn't match the demand. The demand is at 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m. So they're only paying me because the government's forcing them to. That's not a sustainable solution. So as the market forces prevail, there'll be a bunch of solar owners that have excess energy and they'll have no use for it. If they can imagine a mining box that, addresses noise factors, addresses heat factors, maybe even turns the heat produced into something productive at home, heating your swimming pool or your home or something like that, and is turnkey. You just plug in and it works. And it's using not the latest generation mining chip, but actually maybe 4 years old, but is sold at a much lower price point. Then it's economically viable, and you'll be able to get a payback period that's realistic for that equipment.
That's fascinating.
So I do think that's going to happen in the next decade, all the way to the home miner.
And the manufacturers of the solar panels that go on the roofs may be incentivized to build this into their business.
Yeah, you can imagine all kinds of distribution paths and different companies that, again, you mentioned earlier about Bitcoin touching on more and more things over time. Already we're seeing how it touches on public utilities and energy companies, but all of a sudden, totally different companies will be incentivized to integrate this. It could be part of their business model. Another exciting thing about that, so there's the potential to improve decentralization of the ASIC chips, the mining rigs, the number of people mining. I mean, imagine that world where millions, tens of millions, 100 million people around the world who have off the grid solar and they are mining. That's a beautiful world.
Well, it adds to the conversation we had with Troy.
Definitely.
And so there's the hardware side, but there's also the software side. So today we have mining pools and miners, and the mining pools are the ones that run the Bitcoin Core, full nodes. They're the pools are the ones that select transactions, One thing that drives me nuts about the term mining and what most people new to Bitcoin think of mining is that it's only intended to like create new Bitcoin. Like you're digging and mining Bitcoin. But the primary purpose of mining, and the one that will last forever, is transaction selection, and actually basically fulfilling the duties of a central bank, like providing settlement and transactions. Mining, minting of new Bitcoin is super important as well, and that's a critical part. But it goes away over time. The problem with mining today is that the only actors in the ecosystem that can select transactions are these handful of mining pools. So that is a form of centralization. We haven't seen any problems with it to date, but it could potentially be a problem. Either collusion or government intervention or even a hacker. I mean, a hacker could hack into like 3 or 4 pools and be able to, censor transactions. So a change that Matt Corallo on my team worked with some folks at Slushpool on. Matt came up with Better Hash several years ago. And then the folks at Slushpool came up with Stratum V2. They sort of put their heads together, came up with something they all like. And Spiral's funding development of Stratum V2. So Slushpool has like their own implementation. We're funding an open source version that's independent of Slushpool and can work for any pool or any miner in the space. And I think that's super powerful because the 2 key attributes of it improves security of them. So the Stratum mining protocol is the interface between pools and miners. And Stratum V2 improves security of that and decentralization because it allows miners to do transaction selection and run a Bitcoin Core full node. So if we fast forward to this future in 10 years where everyone's mining at home, you'll actually be able to participate in transaction selection as well. And any kind of future debate or war over changes to Bitcoin, anyone doing home mining would be able to participate in that by choosing which software, which version of Bitcoin they're running.